What a good-looking group here. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for being here today. I want to start by recognizing the appointment of Lisette Castaneda as the Commissioner of Housing and Alfonso Randy Connor Jr. as the Commissioner of Water Management. We officially welcome them into my cabinet today. Commissioner Castaneda is an experienced leader and an organizer with real commitment and expertise to make home ownership a reality for the residents of the people of Chicago. She will work collaboratively to build and to preserve affordable housing and to help implement our executive order to streamline development in the city of Chicago. I firmly believe that housing is a human right. And I look forward to working with her to ensure that everyone in our city has access to affordable housing and home ownership, as well as opportunities to build our communities. Commissioner Connor is a proven leader who previously served as Commissioner of the Department of Water Management in 2017. There's nothing more foundational to our collective health than clean drinking water. And Randy brings the type of compassion, the type of collaboration and competency that leadership in the city of Chicago deserves. His ability to manage our systems and to do it in a very safe and healthy way is impressive. I'm proud to welcome him back to the city, and I'm confident that he will continue to serve as he has always done, to lead the world's largest municipally owned water filtration and distribution system. Congratulations to both of them. Thank you. Now, if we can just get the Cubs to bring back, now, we'll see what happens. So we're celebrating Black History Month. And today we honored and celebrated Black Chicagoans of our past, our present, and those who have made this city a remarkable place. We uplifted our Chicago connections to Morehouse College and the Divine Nine, two Black institutions measured in a way that, quite frankly, is second to no one. They have revolutionized our economy, but they've also worked to not just educate, but to build communities. And Morehouse and the Atlanta University Center, in particular, a collection of historically Black colleges and universities, created a way for Black people to enrich themselves when this country denied us the opportunity to do so. We also showed our love for a group of leaders, a family, of faith, and community who have made this city a true beacon for Black culture. And every single day as mayor, I will strive to build equity, fairness, as well as justice for the city of Chicago. Because of that, the best way I believe in which we can truly do that is to really honor the culture and do it all year long. I'm also excited, finally, that we introduced an ordinance that will secure Chicago's future with a plan to build and to develop and to make our city truly prosperous for everyone. I proposed a $1.25 billion bond issuance that would restructure the city of Chicago's approach to equitable neighborhood development and distance ourselves from the challenges of the primary public finance tool that has been relied upon by previous administrations. And one of the reasons I ran for mayor is because too many of our neighborhoods, including my own, bear the scars of disinvestment and neglect. And too many communities on the south and west sides in particular have not benefited from the prosperity of our tremendous city. And while on one hand we have strong, prosperous economy and building blocks that see the potential of our region growing in the coming years, on the other hand, we continue to see a significant gap, particularly when it comes to wealth, as well as employment opportunities, racial, ethnic, and geographical lines, that these gaps continue to widen, and it is my effort and my job to close those gaps. And while this administration cannot undo generations of disinvestment overnight, you better believe that we can offer a vision that charts a new pathway forward. So we're going to invest. It's going to be incremental, but it is $1.25 billion over the next 5 years. And we're going to do it into housing and commercial development throughout the entire city of Chicago. And half of that, approximately $625 million, will go towards investments by the Department of Planning and Development for business in our growth sectors, small businesses in our neighborhood corridors, and arts and culture institutions. The other $625 million over the next 5 years will go towards investments by the Department of Housing into full spectrum housing options from home ownership to affordable rental housing, combating homelessness. These are funds that our residents and community areas need and deserve. I made a promise, I'm going to keep it. The best thing that we can do for the people of Chicago is to invest in them. And this proposal will help us reach our vision for a true, better, stronger, safer future for our young people and communities who need access, who need better tools and resources so that they can thrive. I'm confident in this plan because it was developed in partnership with affordable housing advocates, community development corporations, small business associations, and everyday Chicagoans who love this city. And their values are reflected in the full range of this investment plan. So thank you to all of the city leaders, the advocates, and partners who are with us today that supported this work. Our Chief Operating Officer, John Robertson, Deputy Mayor of Business and Neighborhood Development, Kenya Merritt, and Chief Financial Officer, Jill Jarowski, as well as the members of the Cabinet, our Commissioner for the Department of Planning and Development, Sierra Boatwright, she already had her day, and the newest Commissioner of the Department of Housing, Commissioner Lisette Castaneda. I appreciate all of you, I really do, your hard work and your love for the people of Chicago, and I look forward to the continuous collaboration to pass this ordinance. So now the moment you all have been waiting for. Ronnie.
Hi, Mayor.
Hi.
You're introducing this borrowing plan that is at the same time as, the campaign is underway for Bring Chicago Home. Both of them have aims of trying to accomplish, bolstering affordable housing in the city. Are you concerned at all that this new plan, being introduced at the same time could hurt the referendum's chances if opponents point to the city, launching a large borrowing plan while at the same time asking for a tax hike to be approved for new revenue?
Well, look, the people of Chicago endorsed my leadership because I made a commitment to invest in people. This is yet another tool that we'll have in our toolbox to be able to do just that. Keep in mind, though, that the Bring Chicago Home ordinance that, of course, I ushered through the city council so that it could be brought to the voters, people want us to invest in the unhoused. And I'm not afraid to lead. I mean, it's also important that 93% of people are going to get a tax cut. So, I guess it depends on which angle you want to speak of. The vast majority of people who are going to receive a tax cut or the incremental increase to actually address the unhoused. 1 in 4 black children will experience homelessness in the city of Chicago. Does anyone believe that's okay? I don't think so. The question is there someone who's going to do something about it? And that question has been answered. That's why people elected me.
I'm wondering as well on that plan, will any of the revenue from expiring TIFs go toward the city paying down of its already existing debt, like pensions or?
No, I don't know about pensions, but Jill, we talked about it being used to pay down some debt. Why don't you speak to that?
Sure. The expectation is that the money from the expiring TIFs is going to come into the city, is going to be used for the normal purposes of the general fund. And so the general fund does support paying down general obligation debt. It supports paying our pensions, but it supports paying a lot of other city services as well. So we are not specifically looking to those revenues to pay down debt, but they are going to become part of the general fund, which is an important part of how we finance all the operations and all of our long-term obligations at the city.
Do you have any estimates on how much, of that maybe revenue that would go back to general fund would get, I guess, an estimate of how much exactly percentage-wise would get sent to paying down debt or pensions or things like that?
No, we haven't allocated it that way. We have a lot of financing sources that come to our general fund, so we have not looked at these and said, we're going to specifically use these to pay down debt. As our obligations increase, which is one thing with pensions that, our obligations do continue to increase annually. We obviously are looking for, funding to match that. And this could be part of that solution, but we haven't looked in the future and said, this is how we're going to allocate these monies to pensions. But we are going to have to continue to grow our funds in order to meet our growing obligations.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Mayor.
And just the most important thing there, though, is this is about economic development. This is about us investing in people. That's the whole impetus behind this. It's not just simply a conversation about the debt that I inherited. This is really about the amount of homeless people that we've inherited in my administration. The fact that we need real economic development and business corridors to be able to grow their businesses, which ultimately will hire more people, create a larger economic base because you have more people working, which allows us to generate more revenue. The unfortunate aspect is that previous administrations have looked at it backwards. We're looking at it as forward thinkers. Investing in people grows the economic capacity for the city of Chicago. We've done it a particular way for a very long time, and that has not worked.
Obviously, the borrowing plan was sent to rules today. How does that bode for your administration's goal of passing it next month, and why such a tight turnaround?
Well, democracy allowed for that to happen. It just means we'll have to take one more vote for it.
Do you plan to hold a special meeting to
I don't know if that's necessary.
I'm wondering, Governor J.B. Pritzker today in his budget address announced, as he said, that $182 million to help the migrant crisis. Have there been any more talks with the governor of the city providing that additional $70 million to get to the estimated $320?
Well, we're in conversations every single day. The state, the city, the county. The part that's important, at least we believe it's important, is that we have to build out an entire operation. And there are certain aspects of this mission that we cannot control. And that is the number of people who are flowing from the state of Texas into the city of Chicago. And so numbers, quite frankly, could change based upon the need. What we have done over the course of my first 10 months in office is provided some structure, building an operation that is centered around people's humanity. And so, as you know, $51 million, yes, we voted for that. $150 million, yes, we voted for that. $95 million that the city council provided me with the authority to make sure that we're providing the financial means to address this crisis. We've done that, and there are other operational aspects of this mission that we have to keep in the forefront before we make an absolute determination of what we will ultimately have to be responsible for financially.
Hi, Mayor.
Hey.
I was hoping you could talk us through your decision on ShotSpotter. What was the deciding factor for you? Did you become convinced that it did not provide a public safety benefit or for Chicagoans, or was it that it was too expensive, or what tipped your decision-making process there?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Well, look, first of all, we need every aspect of government to be fully engaged in building a better, stronger, safer Chicago. And so it's going to take all of us. You all know my community safety plan is built around people, places, and partnerships. With this particular form of technology, there has been a series of investigations and reports that have indicated that the return on that investment, I believe, $50 million over the course of 5 years or so, that it just hasn't yielded the results in which it promised. Now, there are some other components that since I've been in office that I'm aware of that were not applied for several years, and so that may have had some impact on its this particular form of technology's outcomes. But it really came down to, is it providing a real true benefit in which it promised to do? And unfortunately, report after report here in the city of Chicago has indicated otherwise. We know that the state's attorney also did an investigation of this particular form of technology, and the vast majority, I believe at one point, another news outlet looked at maybe 1 in 10 actually yielded the type of results that the technology promised. So we have to look very carefully at how the city of Chicago is appropriating dollars and whether or not there's a benefit there. And I just didn't see enough evidence that there was a benefit.
And back to the bond proposal, this would really change the way the city uses tax increment financing. All of us public policy nerds are freaking out about it. It's a big deal. Why move away from TIFs, which of course have been sort of a source of controversy for many years? Is this also reflective of your conclusion that mechanism didn't eradicate blight, but also served to sort of reinforce the inequities you were elected to address?
Yeah, well, the big, question that I ask myself daily, how do we make sure that there's an equitable distribution of resources? And this is another tool and another opportunity for us to do that. Because the TIFs in and of themselves, there are restraints, right? Because they are pocketed in certain spaces that in some instances it doesn't have the level of strength to really dig in and to see these communities transform. Now, we're not completely moving away from TIFs. Now, there is a mechanism in which some of them could be sustained. This is to make sure that there is a variety available to my office to address these inequities. The cool thing about Chicago, though, is that there's not one industry that comprises of 14% of the entire GDP. So we have a very diverse economy. And so I have a very highly skilled, intelligent team that is helping us come up with other creative means to do what other administrations either failed to do or they just didn't have the wherewithal or the desire to do. Thank you for that question.
Good afternoon, Mayor.
Good afternoon.
What are your thoughts on the CPS board moving to end the use of CPD officers in schools? And do you support SEIU's offer to allow civilians to be hired as part-time security officers instead?
Well, I believe there are roughly 39 schools or so that have school resource officers. And, there's nothing more important to me than making sure that our children and our families feel safe and in a healthy learning environment. Everyone knows I send my children to public schools in Chicago, and so I have a firsthand experience as not just as a parent, but also as a teacher. So the board's decision to move away from SROs is really about how do we create a holistic approach towards community safety within inside schools. So if schools want security guards, or if they want restorative justice practitioners, that those dollars could be made available. I think the other important thing, though, is that each school community should have a strong relationship with their respective police districts. Policing is just one component of community safety. They should still participate in ensuring that the school community is surrounded with love. But again, as I've made it very clear, that every single thing that I promised that I would do as a candidate, I'm doing it. I believe it's important to keep your word, so I'm doing that.
But do you think any replacement to SROs should be armed or unarmed? And how would a security guard apparatus have more accountability than the SROs? Well,
look, most of the schools have school security guards. The school that my children attend on the northwest side of Chicago, they have security guards there. As far as accountability is concerned, I mean, that's, things that are worked out within contracts. But hear me well, that community safety and public safety is the number one priority in the city of Chicago. What we have to do is provide a real holistic approach to creating an environment that does just that. And so resources will be available for local schools to make a decision of how they want those dollars to be distributed. And they also have to make sure, and I will do everything in my power to help build relationships where they don't exist, where those local police districts can still be engaged, whether it's drop-off, dismissal, all of those aspects of after-school events, activities, sports, and recreation, that it's going to require all aspects of government to participate. And so accountability is really going to come down to what we ultimately want to see in our schools, and that's a healthy, safe learning environment for all of our children. And I'm a big cheerleader of that.
Good afternoon, Mayor. My name is Olivia Stevens. I'm new to the Chicago Tribune. Nice
Kind
to
of
meet
knew
you.
that. Welcome aboard.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Hello.
Oh my God. gosh, the clapping.
What's your name again?
Olivia Stevens. Yeah, but
Sounds very reportery.
thank you. I appreciate that. I didn't change my name, but kind of moving to potential new stadium funding. I was curious. It's like no secret that the White Sox are seeking public funding. And I was curious if you would support funneling any possible city tax revenue, maybe from like hotels, food, amusement, anything like that, to a new stadium for the Sox or even the Bears.
Well, first of all, I'm grateful that both organizations, are committed to staying in Chicago. My administration, we've been working very hard. Our Chief Operations Officer, John Robertson, bless him, he's working a lot of hours these days, but his team has been fully engaged along with Kenya Merritt, a whole host of individuals. And so I'm grateful that both organizations are committed to having these conversations. As far as financing these projects, both organizations know that they have to put some skin in the game, and they've expressed a commitment to do that. As far as public dollars, we haven't got into any of those specifics just yet, but I will say that, we're going to explore all options, but we have to make sure that we're doing right by the people of Chicago. So we'll explore options. Everything is on the table here. But again, I want to make sure that there's a real commitment to public use and public benefit. And again, those particular respective spaces have to put some skin in the game as well. Thank you, and welcome aboard, Olivia.
Good afternoon, Mayor.
Good afternoon.
I want to ask about the lawsuit against Big Oil. What are you hoping that the city can get out of this, besides having to send lawyers into court on a tough case?
Yeah, that's a good question. Look, it's no secret, that these big companies have not been forthright with the people of Chicago, really the people of the country. And so one of the things that we want to get out of this is that there's a real acknowledgement and recognition that for Black and brown families in particular, we've seen numbers as upward as $200 million that it has caused just everyday residents because of their unwillingness to not, because they've admitted behind closed doors that there's real climate change, but they've done nothing to mitigate it. And so, we want to see a real commitment to policy changes so that we don't have this over-reliance upon burning the fossil fuels. We know what my effort is calling for decarbonization over the course of years in the city of Chicago, moving away from fossil fuels. But we know that climate change is real. They know, these corporations, they know that climate change is real. So we need them to actually react and respond to the change. And then, as far as what potential restitution could be made there, there are still some conversations around what those specific asks and demands can be.
But the argument about climate change and that it has been caused by the petroleum industry has been made for decades. If they had admitted it, what could have been done differently if they had admitted it? Wouldn't it still be up to government to do something? Well,
look, do we have to, this is why I said that the work to move towards decarbonization is something that I'm committed to doing. As far as the exact opportunities for restitution, those things can be litigated. We're hoping that as this case continues to develop and move forward, that we can have more clarity around what type of restitution can be made available. But also the clearest point, though, is, there's value in people admitting when they're wrong. There is real value there, and so I hope this doesn't rattle too many people. Sometimes the things that have caused harm and pain, you may not be able to go back and correct it, but it could save lives in the future, right? And so, whether it's the pain and the suffering that has been caused by these corporations and their failure to actually respond to climate change, that it's incumbent upon all of us to build better systems of care so that families like mine that struggled with utility and the like won't have to continue to bear those burdens. Thank you for that question.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor.
Hey, it's good to see
having
you.
gone across the street from Morehouse, I'm happy to see that Clark College and Clark Atlanta University graduates are making history on both sides of City Council, in the press box and on the City Council itself, including Alderman Lamont Robinson. Anyways, getting to this whole West South investment thing, which sounds like a carryover of what Lori Lightfoot initiated. Our question out in the Deep South is, why would we trust this administration or any administration to pull that off when nobody else has been able to pull that off, number one. And number two, there are relics of the old system that are still stuck in there. For example, it's come to our attention that Kerry Austin's son is working for the 21st Ward Streets and Sanitation Division, when we would have thought that he would have been on the no-hire list after that incident he had on the west side of Chicago with a 21st Ward truck that wasn't supposed to be there and that he didn't report a fender bender with.
Well, Mark, look, I understand that there are people that have had, real bad experiences with government. You won't get an argument from me. I've had such bad experiences with government, I decided to run for office and take it over. I've given people my word, and everything that I said that I would do, I've done it up to this point. And I can't speak for what previous administrations failed to do, or, individuals who are still remnants of the past. I'm saying that you're looking at a stage here that represents the future of Chicago. This is one of the most creative ways in which we can use dollars to invest in people. And just like I've invested in young people, just like we're investing in the unhoused, just like we're investing in violence prevention, just like I've made a commitment and we're investing in opening up mental health centers, all of these investments that I said that I would do, I'm doing it. And I'm confident that the people of Chicago recognize that they have a mayor that loves them enough to keep his word. I'm going to keep my word.
How's that going to work in the Deep South, though? Because we're not seeing it out there.
Look, that's why we need this. Why we need this plan here. So yes, whether you're the Deep South, Roseland, or you're in the far West, like Austin, and everyone else in between, I know the pain and struggles that people have experienced in the city of Chicago, and that's why this creative team has come up with another tool to make critical investments. As I said, whether it's housing and economic development, the plan is to use these dollars to invest in the Deep South. Thanks.
Hi, Mayor. So Alderman Nick Sposato said he was a little disappointed and surprised that Aaron Harkey was dismissed. He thought he might be able to get a little heads up on it. Do you think that alders deserve any notice about these changes? And would you say you're done reorganizing your leadership team? Or may there be other replacements, including at the CTA?
Well, look, all of these positions, everyone knows that every administration has made changes in its leadership. And so in that regard, we're no different than any other administration. And so I've made a commitment to bring people along who have the confidence of my leadership. And so to your last question, are we going to continue to look at hiring other people in other positions? Yes. Yes.
And dismissing some leaders?
So, I don't discuss personnel issues, but the people up here who are a part of my administration, there were other people in those positions. So again, it's very common for a new mayor to come into office and to hire people. And so, yes, I'm committed to making sure that we make hires that reflect our values.
But do you agree with Sposato that maybe he should have gotten some heads up?
Well, look, we've had a conversation with Alderman Sposato. We have constant conversations with alder people. We really work hard to keep personnel issues in a sacred space. So my administration is going to continue to communicate with alders every step of the way as I, who have the authority to hire people, and in the event that this is not the appropriate fit for them, I have the authority to make another decision.
Hey, Mayor.
Hey.
Hey.
You're not the new person anymore.
Yeah, a month in. On the handling of ShotSpotter last week, where did the confusion over what the city and the company had agreed to come from, and how much is the 2-month or the new extension with the 2-month transition period going to cost?
Well, as I announced, I believe that was last Tuesday, I don't remember anymore. I said that, we're not going to renew the contract. I said that. and that September 22nd would be the last day, but that we were obviously still open to how we demobilize this particular operation because it's been a fixture for 5 years. So there are a host of things that have to happen along the way. Now, that's where we ultimately landed, where I said we would be. I'm not really entirely sure where the confusion was. I just know that whatever that breakdown was, we rectified it. In terms of, what the costs are, again, this has been a $50 million cost over the course of several years. And I believe for the 6 month, as well as what this wind down will consist of, along with some other termination elements that are provided in the contract, roughly $8 million or so. But we'll have someone get you that number.
Just to push back a little bit, the 2-month transition period was not included in the Tuesday statement. Why was that added?
Well, maybe perhaps it just wasn't, expressed. I didn't get into all of the details at the time, but again, the September 22nd was always the date. That's what I said. And as far as the wind down is concerned, that there were, other aspects of that wind down that just weren't articulated, but it's clear that's what the wind down is, and the cost roughly will be about $8 million or so. But we'll make sure we get you that absolute number. Thank you. Thank you for the pushback.
Hi, Mayor.
Hey.
I want to ask about healthcare. We learned the other day about the cause of death for 5-year-old John Carlos. The city's own record shows as far back as October, the city was aware of overcrowding potential, the risk of respiratory illnesses, and the challenges of getting people the initial healthcare assessments. Since that time, there have been hundreds of EMS runs, increases in cases of chickenpox, and people telling us that they are getting bills that they can't pay. Knowing all that, could your office have done a better job of addressing the health needs of migrants?
Well, first of all, I've expressed my condolences and my deep sorrow for the loss of this baby boy. As a father of 3 children, it's an unimaginable pain. As far as the health care that we have provided along with the county, of course we've had our challenges. That was never a secret. People were arriving in the city of Chicago in a very extreme. It just wasn't right the way people were arriving here. And we were responding to it to the best of our ability, providing health screenings, infectious disease control, linking them with other services outside of the county and what the city provides with other healthcare providers. I've worked hard over the course of these 10 months to respond to this international crisis. And I'm grateful that we do have partners, and I've said this repeatedly. We need more help. This is unsustainable. This is unprecedented, the amount of people who are arriving in the city of Chicago. And so the ambulatory runs in particular that you're speaking of, there were more ambulatory runs when people were in police districts. That wasn't new. It might have been new for people who had just come online covering it, but the conditions in our police districts were awful. And I made a commitment to decompress those police districts because it was unhealthy. So in terms of how we can continue to do more, Dr. Ige and her team, they're working hard to do that. I believe now that there is a healthcare provider in all of our shelters. And there is stronger coordination with other healthcare providers outside of county government. So we're going to continue to work and to build on that.
Has there been any headway with the volunteer groups who had written letters to your office saying, we want to partner, we want to be able to get access to the shelters? Have they been able to do so yet?
We've had tremendous headway. In fact, I believe a couple of weeks ago, didn't we just announce our full volunteer program? But I'm glad you raised that. Look, never in the history of America where a local municipality has had to build a migrant shelter, encampment, or settlement. And so whether that's finding temporary emergency shelter, feeding people, washing clothes, staffing. There are almost 6,000 children in our Chicago public schools. We just enrolled Just this past month, 600 children into our early child care centers. I mean, I want to emphasize that whatever critique people might have of this operation, people are well within their rights to have that. And there is no model for this. We are literally building this operation as we go along. I'm grateful to the volunteers who have been willing to step in, and now we actually have a mechanism in which that operation can grow along with our faith community. These initiatives have been, it's been remarkable to be in coordination with so many people who work for the city of Chicago, to build up this operation without any federal support. Is there more work to be done? Absolutely. Am I committed to doing that? You better believe it.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
With the passage of the dollar store ordinance, on top of many other ordinances that are perceived as anti-business, are you concerned about the reputation of your administration as being anti-business? And do you think businesses are being driven away by these ordinances? And do you think that these ordinances may hurt the Bring Chicago Home referendum?
Way to get them all in, Sarah. True veteran. Olivia, you see that? You learn from that. We're not anti-business. We're not. We just made, was another $38 million, Kenya, of investments into small businesses on the south and west side of Chicago. We have one of the fastest growing economies in the entire country. You know, what I find remarkable, though, is that and I'm not blaming you, Sarah, for the question. I'm just saying, when you actually pass ordinance to support workers and communities, why is that seen as anti-business? I just find that a little, to be honest with you, I just find it to be a little counterintuitive. Businesses don't thrive and grow without the type of investments that my administration is making. And they certainly don't grow without making sure that workers are protected. That's the best way to ensure that businesses can thrive and grow. And, you know, the neat thing about, I believe, our administration is that we have been unapologetic about making critical investments into communities to grow business, to grow housing, our commercial corridors. We're making all those investments. So the city of Chicago is open for business.
And just on a different subject, back to ShotSpotter, was Superintendent Larry Snelling informed about the decision before
yes, look,
it was public last week?
Yeah, of course. Superintendent Snelling and I, we talk all the time. Now, here's the thing.
But was he informed
yes,
before that it went public?
Yes. I talk to so many people all day, every day. Nothing is surreptitious about my administration. We've been in constant communication, and quite frankly, I actually appreciate Superintendent Snelling's position around ShotSpotter. I do. In fact, you know, there are elements of ShotSpotter that, quite frankly, you know, it's unfortunate that the previous superintendent, there are just certain elements of the implementation that just fell by the wayside. And so there have been examples that he has shared where all of our police intervention and our community intervention has to be stronger and holistic. But Superintendent Snelling and I have a strong relationship, and yes, he's aware, and he's always been aware. I don't make decisions like that without having a conversation with my superintendent.
So why get rid of it if he and almost all of law enforcement supports it?
So this is your fifth question, by the way, so just know it's okay, but that's how generous that I am. I try to give people as much space as possible. I think that question was asked earlier about what was the tipping point. I believe Heather asked that question. I got you, Sarah. Hold on. If you just be patient, please. Okay. The question is, why did I decide to get rid of it? Even if there are people who support it. There are lots of things that people support that I don't. This is not the only thing. So as much as I value the expertise that people bring, I don't make decisions based upon one person's opinion. I don't. This was a collective response. That's how I lead, and that's how I will continue to lead. Thank you.
Hey, in the back here. So the city has closed 4 migrant shelters. Can you explain why that amounts to about 400 beds, give or take. Is the city planning to close any more shelters? And is it a possibility that the ones that have been closed could be reopened if needed?
So those particular shelters were our most expensive shelters to run. And my responsibility is to optimize the space that we have. Those particular shelters that you're referring to will save the city conservatively about $19 million. We have to right-size this mission around the budget that I have. Now, of course, we're grateful that the state and the county is working towards providing more investments, even though we have to have a more substantive conversation about where those dollars will actually go. But as far as whether or not those particular sites will be back online, no, we're not moving backwards, we're moving forward.
Is the 19 million figure, is that per month?
That's over the course of a year.
Okay. And then on the campaign trail, you've said that you'd roll back the previous administration's decision to encrypt police scanners. I'm curious, is that still the plan? And if so, how?
We're still discussing that. Thank you.
Mayor, on the topic
What's
of
your name?
ShotSpotter, Courtney Spinelli, I'm with WGN.
Hey, Courtney.
Nice to meet you.
Pleasure.
On the topic of ShotSpotter, I know that when we were talking to data experts just about the decisions that were made and what it was based off of, one of the things that was brought up was that there is no data point to show the victims that may have been found by calls for ShotSpotter and the outcomes of those victims. Did they survive? What that was like. Over the next few months, do you plan to look at that data? And if it does show really opposite of what we already see, would you consider reconsidering that decision, or is this a done deal?
Well, so this is a done deal. I've canceled ShotSpotter. The point of this data collection, though, is more about how we build tools and systems to create, safer communities. There are other forms of investments that we can make to not just be preventative, but also how we make sure that in the event a crisis does occur, that the right response is given. I personally would like to see, a system that allows us to have EMTs respond. Because remember, was it 40% of the 911 calls that do come through are mental health crises? This is all I'm saying is that my administration is working hard to come up with creative ways to respond to community safety matters. So that's where I am at on that. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor. I just a quick question about is there a timeline for picking a new zoning chair? Any update on that? And then I do have a question for some of the commissioners after, but I'll let you answer
For some of the commissioners, how many questions do you have?
just
all right. We're really close to landing on our new zoning chair. We're really close.
And yeah, I just back to the executive order on streamlining commercial and housing development. The department commissioners that fall under that executive order, I just wanted to hear from them on what success actually looks like, how they define that streamlining of that process.
I'm gonna let our chief operations officer speak to that. Is that okay? Because that's he can speak for all of the commissioners.
Thank you. So when we think about the Green Tape Initiative, what we're trying to do is to make sure that we have a process that enables development and also mitigates risk. So there's some duplicity throughout the system. There are processes that are more sequential rather than being parallel. So we want to take a look at what are the things that we absolutely should do, have to do, that are related to public safety, that are related to mitigating those risks, and really get the barriers out of the way that keep developers and keep our communities from being redeveloped. And I think that with Commissioner Castaneda, with Commissioner Boatwright, and with Kenya Merritt, who is also working on our efforts in relation to our Green Tape Initiative, our goal is to try to reduce the amount of time that it takes for someone to get a permit. At the end of the day, the longer it takes, there is a risk to development not happening. Every single day that we delay getting that permit out the door, there's a risk that interest rates go up. There's a risk that contractor capacity is taken up. And so we have to be focused on making sure that we are looking at this from the standpoint of not months, but actually days. And so we are absolutely committed to making sure that we do everything possible to get permits in hand so that we can get shovels in the ground.
Thank you, John.
Hey, Mayor, on the bond plan, so my understanding of these are GO bonds, right? And the anticipated revenue coming back to the city once the TIFs expire, right? Or what is backing this, or at least what's allowed you guys to say that it wouldn't result in a necessary property tax increase, right? But will there be guardrails in place? What prevents you a few years down the road, a second term if you get it, or a new mayor coming along and saying, I want to issue new bonds that are kind of TIF expiration bonds, and kind of wanted that equal to like kind of double dipping on the expiration of these TIFs?
I'm going to turn that to Jill because you triggered me talking about if I get a second term.
When we addressed this during Mayor Johnson's second term, in order to issue more bonds under this program, we would need city council authorization. The city cannot issue debt. It's not without the city council approving that and authorizing it. So that is first and foremost the biggest check there is on doing more debt. The other part is that when we are looking at any kind of debt proposal, we are looking at it from a long-term perspective of fitting it into our budget, it being affordable, and what are the benefits that we get out of it. So when we're doing a program like this, we're investing in housing and economic development, the intention is that that is going to bring benefits to our economy that's going to also accrue back to the city. When any individual loses a home, when a family loses a home, when they move to another city because they can't continue to afford here, that's lost tax dollars, lost economic activity in the city. So these are investments that are really designed to help grow the city, take care of our residents, keep them in a more stable position. So ultimately, we'll be generating more taxes from all the activity that they're engaged in. We may get to a point in the future where we say, it makes sense to continue this program. We would like to do another $1 billion, and we'll do an economic analysis. How much revenue have we seen from that increment? We'll have had more TIFs expire in that time, so we may add that in. And we may also be just generating enough more tax revenue that we could afford more GO debt. So it's really going to be about budgeting in the long term, and again, thinking about what do these investments bring back to the city? We're not just spending to fix potholes on this. We're spending to drive economic growth. So we have to keep borrowing to fix the potholes too. That's never going to change. But these initiatives should really pay us back in the long run in multiple ways.
And then, and this is for the mayor. So we're discussing $1.25 billion, right, for affordable housing and economic development, and the kind of things that you talked about on the campaign trail. But it's just struck me during the press conference, $1.2 billion is roughly what the White Sox are asking to subsidize their new stadium. In your the question earlier, you said all options are on the table. Why is that? Why are you keeping the option open to approve taxpayer dollars to subsidize a privately owned stadium? And just to add to that, this could also include additional TIF subsidies from that currently existing TIF. My understanding is they may come to the city and ask for additional subsidies beyond the $551 million.
Yeah, they might, Justin, but there's no guarantee that they'll get it from the city. What I've said repeatedly is that we need to make sure that our investments have real public benefit, and that there has to be a commitment to public use. And those conversations are being had, and there are some promising developments that eventually we'll be able to talk about out loud. The reason why I said it's important that we have a full discussion, because it will never be said that my administration just shut down conversations. Even with the decision around ShotSpotter, I was very thoughtful about how we dismissed that particular form of technology. But it didn't mean that I could not come up with a variation that allowed for us to collect some data and then to build tools towards what public safety ultimately really needs, which is a holistic approach. So in everything that I've done is that there are people who have positions and stances that are different than mine, and I'm willing to hear and listen to them. I have not made a commitment. I'm just saying that we're just open to the discussion, that's all. And I do apologize, you all. Our ASL, they were triple booked, so I do apologize to the public for not having an American Sign Language person here today.
Hi, I'm Josh Hernandez with CBS 2.
Hey, Josh.
Jeez.
How you feeling, man?
I'm a little nervous.
All
It's
right,
my
you're
first
okay.
time, but
Come on, you all. Make them feel welcome.
oh,
Olivia, you're no longer the youngest, newest reporter. All right, go ahead.
we were wondering, can we get your reaction to a recent allegation being made by Alderman Yancey and how he said he was attacked by Alderman Mitchell last week?
I really wish that there were ways in which we can have, strong debate without it, becoming exacerbated. One of my favorite characters of all time in history is Thaddeus Stevens, and talked an awful lot about just the negotiations up to the very end to abolish slavery. And, it's not uncommon for public officials to get animated. I have not spoken with both of them yet to get a full understanding of what happened, but obviously that, I don't condone any, physical altercation. I just hope that people can have real substantive dialogue around a host of matters that don't lead towards someone feeling violated. So I'm going to have a conversation with both of them, over the next, 36, 48 hours, and just to get a better understanding of what went down. But it's unfortunate, though, that our public, debates have spilled out in a way that doesn't speak to the best of our democracy, even when we do have strong disagreement. Did you have another one? Just because you knew I was going to throw one, you got to do it quick.
Oh.
That's okay. I use shea butter. Thank you all very much. Appreciate you all.